Okay, so it is time to finish There's a Boy in the Girls' Bathroom. I was hoping to do it in school, but I guess we'll have to do it this way. We're very near the end. We've been right up to page 184. And just to bring everyone up to speed, the major things that happened. So you might remember what happened with Carla. She was transferred to another school. You might remember why. Bradley was very hurt and angry, and he didn't go to say goodbye. But what's happening now is the big day. Bradley and Jeff are going to Colleen's birthday party, and there was great excitement as the girls are waiting for the two boys to arrive. And Jeff is kind of coaching Bradley, telling him what to do and how the parties work, because Bradley hasn't been to one in a very long time. He always gets in trouble. And they have this funny thing that I haven't really seen happen in Ireland, but where Colleen's mother is organising a bunch of games in the garden, and they're keeping track of who's winning, and they give points to each team, and they change the teams, and in the end you get one winner. So far Bradley, he had a weak start, I think, but actually he's doing very well at the minute. So page 184. Now, if you'd like to read this yourself, by all means, please do. If you find it a little bit challenging still, reading through it, and you prefer to read along with me, then you can keep watching the video. Otherwise, you can stop the video now and read the book right on until the end. But make sure you do read it and do understand it, because we'll have a couple of other little activities to do based on this over the next few days. So Bradley laughed with delight. Are all birthday parties this much fun? He asked. Judy and Betty looked at each other. The only thing that made this party special was the boys, but they couldn't tell that to Bradley. Haven't you ever been to a birthday party before? Asked Betty. Not for a long time. I got kicked out of the last one I went to. Well, if you have any questions, just ask me, said Betty. Or me, said Judy. I've been to more birthday parties than you, said Betty. You have not, said Judy. She hasn't. What about Holly's birthday party? Asked Betty. You didn't go to that one. That's because we were on vacation, said Judy. So, you still didn't go. They had to switch teams for the next relay race. This time Bradley was with Betty, Amy, Karen and Melinda. For this race, everyone had to hop on one foot. On one foot, Bradley exclaimed. He rooted loudly for everyone on his team. So that's a word we wouldn't use much here, but that's kind of he cheered, or he rooted loudly for everyone on his team. And when it was his turn, he heard them all cheer for him. His team won again. You're an excellent hopper, Melinda, he said, after the race. You hopped twice as far as Colleen on each hop. Melinda beamed. You're a good hopper too, she said. Colleen's mother marked the points on the chart, and they switched teams for the next race. This time they had to hop on both feet. On both feet? Bradley exclaimed. They continued changing teams for each new race. He and Jeff were never allowed on the same team, and since Colleen always made sure that she was on Jeff's team, Bradley was never with her either. He was glad about that. He felt comfortable with everybody else, but he was still a little scared of Colleen. He was afraid she might ask him another question he wasn't supposed to answer, such as she asked him what he got her for a present. Laurie was on his team for the backward race. She stood behind him in line and screamed in his ear the whole time. He loved it. He had to shout twice as loud just to hear himself. His ear was still ringing when Mrs. Verigold announced that the next race would be a somersault race. The smile left his face. He didn't know how to do a somersault. He looked anxiously at Chicken. Now, Chicken, if I remember, I'm not quite sure, I think Chicken was Colleen's dog. But as it turned out, nobody on his team could do a somersault. It was hilarious. Everyone was laughing. When it was his turn, he rolled and flopped in every direction, except the way he was supposed to go. And every time he hit the ground, Chicken tried to lick his face. Perhaps he would have done better if he could have stopped laughing. Everybody on the other team was good at somersaults. The teams just worked out that way. Karen was the best. "You should be in the Olympics," he told her after the race. She smiled and blushed. Bradley smiled too. Even though his team lost, he thought it had been the most fun race of the day. Plus, when the girls somersaulted in their party dresses, he could see their underwear. Chapter 46. Colleen's mother told everyone to find a party for the three-legged race. Jeff and Colleen looked nervously at each other. Judy and Betty paired up. They stood side by side with their arms around each other's shoulders as Mrs. Verigold tied their inside legs together. Laurie and Melinda became another team. Bradley thought they looked funny since Melinda was almost twice Laurie's size. Amy and Dina looked even funnier. Since they were both dressed the same, they looked like a two-headed monster. Except, of course, he didn't believe in monsters. Now, one thing we were practicing while we were still back in school was kind of making a picture in our head of what's going on. So just see now if you can picture Jeff and Colleen nervously looking at each other. Jeff and Betty with their arms around and their inside legs been tied. Laurie and Melinda looking funny because they were totally different sizes. So, reading on. Karen suddenly realised what was happening. If Jeff and Colleen became partners, it meant she'd have to be partners with Bradley. So, Jeff said to Colleen, "Who's your partner?" "No one, yet," said Colleen. "Who's yours?" "No one, yet." Colleen's mother stepped in and paired up the final two teams. She didn't think it would be proper for a boy and a girl to have their legs tied together, so she made Jeff and Bradley one team and Colleen and Karen the other. Bradley was glad that he and Jeff were finally on the same team. Colleen and Jeff were happy with the teams too. As much as they liked each other, they weren't quite ready to put their arms around each other and tie their legs together. Karen was the only one who was disappointed. She thought it would have been exciting to have been partners with Bradley. The 5 teams lined up. It wasn't a relay race. Each team would go at the same time. They had to run past the tree to the fence, then back. "Don't try to run too fast," Jeff cautioned. So he kind of warned. "The most important thing is that we keep together so we don't fall down." Bradley nodded. "On your mark," said Mrs. Verigold. "Get set, go!" They took 2 steps, then tumbled to the ground. As they tried to get up, they kept pulling each other back down. At last they stood up together and started after the others. "Inside, outside, inside, outside," Jeff directed as they moved their legs in unison. The other teams took a long time turning around at the fence. When Jeff and Bradley reached the fence, they simply fell down again and stood up facing the other direction. It was quicker that way. Amy and Dina were just ahead of them. Amy tried to go to the left of the tree as Dina tried to go to the right of it. They smashed into it. "Inside, outside, inside, outside," said Jeff as he and Bradley charged around them. Karen and Colleen were in the lead when they suddenly stumbled and fell on their faces. Judy and Betty tumbled over them. Laurie and Melinda had to stop and turn to avoid the pile. Jeff and Bradley charged past, now in first place. "Inside, outside, inside, outside," called Jeff. But they must have missed a beat somewhere because when he said inside, they moved their outside feet. And when he said outside, they moved their inside feet. "Hey Bradley, you're going the wrong way," yelled Laurie. "Whoa, poof." Amy and Dina dived across the finish line in first place, just ahead of Laurie and Melinda. Jeff and Bradley crawled across in third. Judy, Betty, Karen and Colleen remained tangled together in the grass. After everyone got untied, they gathered on the grass next to the patio. "Now what?" Bradley asked nobody in particular. "Colleen's mother is adding up the points," said Betty. "Then we'll get to pick our prizes," said Judy. "He asked me," said Betty. Everyone hushed as Mrs. Verigold prepared to announce the winner. "The winner is..." She paused suspensefully. Now suspense is when you're kind of waiting excitedly. "Bradley!" He was shocked. He had been on the winning team every time except for the three-legged race and the somersault race, but he'd been having too much fun to notice. Everyone clapped their hands as he walked to the front. Mrs. Verigold gave him a blue ribbon that said first place on it. No one had told him about the ribbon. Then he got to pick a prize. He looked through the basket. There were lots of good things from which to choose. Dolls, makeup, perfume, earrings, hair ornaments. He chose a harmonica. Melinda came in second. Then Amy, Judy, Dina, Karen, Laurie and Betty, and Jeff was last. Jeff knew he'd be last since he was never on Bradley's team. The only race he won was the somersault race. Actually, he had tied for last with Colleen, but Colleen didn't get a prize because she'd be getting all her presents later. Now we're about 10-11 minutes in here, so if anyone's getting a bit tired from the listening or needs a break, feel free to pause it, get up, walk around, come back to it tomorrow if need be, but I'll keep reading on. Jeff took the only prize left in the basket, a doll's dress. Thank you, he said politely. Now what? Bradley asked. We have ice cream and cake, said Melinda. Oh boy, said Bradley. Melinda laughed. They sat at the picnic table. Colleen sat at the head of the table. Bradley sat between Jeff and Melinda. Judy and Betty sat across from him. Mrs. Verigold's going to bring in the cake now, said Judy. With candles, said Betty. I'm telling him, said Judy. With candles. So I'm kind of enjoying this picture of the party so far because everyone's kind of caught on to Jeff telling Bradley how it works because Bradley doesn't know how the parties work and they're all joining in trying to help him. Every little small tiny thing that happens, Bradley's getting great excitement, I guess, and fun out of it. So Mrs. Verigold brought in the cake and suddenly everyone started singing. Bradley was caught by surprise. He didn't have time to remember the words. Though he tried, he sang, Happy birthday, dear to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you, dear Colleen. Happy birthday, dear to you. Happy birthday to... He suddenly realised he was the only one still singing. Everyone laughed. It's not his fault, said Judy. This is his first birthday party in a long time. There are 10 candles because she's 10 years old, explained Betty. Oh, I get it, said Bradley. Laurie laughed. Colleen blew them all out. That means her wish will come true, explained Melinda. But she can't tell you what she wished for. Otherwise it won't come true, Laurie explained. Bradley carefully ate his cake and ice cream without making a mess. Then everyone went into the living room where Colleen opened her presents. Open mine! Mine first! They urged. And so when you're urging someone, we had this a few weeks ago, when you're urging someone, you're kind of encouraging them to do something. You're putting a bit of pressure, or you're asking them. You're encouraging them to do it. That one's mine. Open mine, Colleen, said Bradley. After each present was opened, everyone said, how neat, and ooh, and I wish I had one of those. Bradley said those things too, and he meant what he said, although most of the gifts were things he never would have wanted. Colleen picked up the next present. That's mine, he shouted. Colleen read the card. On the front of the card there was a picture of a baseball player swinging a baseball bat. It said, here's hoping your birthday is... ... On the inside of the card it showed the bat smacking a ball and it said, a big hit. Under that it said, happy birthday, and it was signed, Love, Bradley. Everyone went crazy. Love! Exclaimed Amy. Love! Bradley's heart sank as he realised he had made a terrible mistake. Bradley's in love with Colleen, said Dina. Ooh, Bradley, said Judy. When are you getting married? Teased Laurie. Shut up, Karen shouted. Everyone stopped talking and looked at her very surprised. Big deal, said Karen. You're all so immature. And if you are immature, just a pause for a minute, if someone's immature, it means they act kind of childish. And if you're just mature, if you take out the I am, it means you kind of act more grown up. Colleen tore off the wrapping paper and looked at Bradley's gift. Her mouth dropped open. She showed it to everyone. "Wow," said Laurie. "Let me see," said Amy. It was a replica of the human heart. They could see all the blood vessels, the aorta, and all the capillaries. The heart valves opened and shut. It could be taken apart and put back together again. And if anyone wants to see what she's describing here, I'm sure you could Google it on the tablet, but make sure you get a diagram, maybe not the real picture. "How neat," said Melinda. "I wish I had one of those," said Betty. Bradley smiled proudly. He felt happier about the fact that Colleen liked his present than about coming in first place. But of course, he knew all along she'd like it. Carla had told him to give her a gift from the heart. So Bradley gave her a gift of the heart. Colleen opened the rest of the presents. Then everyone went home. Jeff and Bradley left together. It was still light outside, although the streetlights had come on. "So?" asked Jeff. "Wasn't that fun?" Bradley exclaimed. "It was the most... At first, when I gave Colleen her present and she asked me what it was, I almost told her. And then, when I was the only one sitting at the table, my, this boy must be hungry. But then the races started and everyone got points, even the losers. Only next time I won't sign it love. Karen's a good somersaulter. Chicken's a funny name for a dog. Maybe if they get a chicken, they'll name it Dog." He blew into his harmonica. The doll's dress dangled from Jeff's hand. Chapter 47 and the last chapter, I believe. Dear Carla, "Hi. What colour shirt are you wearing today? I'm sorry I yelled at you. Guess what? I got 100% on my arithmetic test." That's arithmetic is a kind of maths. "Can you believe it? And I didn't rip it up. I would have sent it to you, but I can't because it's hanging on a wall in Mrs. Ebble's class. Do you like teaching kindergarten? I bet you're a good teacher. Ask them to draw pictures for you. You should teach them how to do somersaults too. Thanks for giving me back the book which you already gave me. I'm sending you a present too. It's a gift from the heart, so you can't return it. Love, yours truly," crossed out. "Love, Bradley. P.S. Her name is Ronnie." Bradley folded the letter and put it in the envelope. He wrote Carla's name on the outside and addressed it to Willow Bend School. Ronnie gave Bartholomew a big hug and kiss. "Well, goodbye everybody," she said. "Goodbye, Ronnie," said everybody. "I'll miss you," said Bartholomew. Bradley placed the little red rabbit with the broken ear inside the envelope. He stared out his window for a moment, then looked back down at the bulge in the envelope. He frowned. But it was an unusual frown. In fact, it might have been a smile. And that is it. Congratulations on finishing the book. A very challenging book for third class, and I hope you enjoyed reading it, maybe learned something from it. As I said, maybe read back over it again if you were just listening to me read it, because we'll be talking a bit more about it and doing a couple of activities in Seesaw based on this.